Hello and welcome to Priority Parenting Session 5. I hope you enjoyed the previous sessions, taken notes, improved on your relationship with your children, and of course along the way with your spouses. The last episode, we spoke about something very specific on a very sensitive topic, not only talking to boys but also on the current issues with regards to child abuse. We hope you took cognizance of the dangers lurking around our children and how do we talk to them or have a meaningful conversation with our children. Today we're going to talk on something similar but a different topic, and hopefully we will also take a little light-hearted approach to a taboo subject that we hardly speak in our conversations or in our families. You see, shame is a powerful motivation and it makes you always stay silent. Do you remember the scene of shame from the recent episode of Game of Thrones, where shame became a topic of a lot of pun and commercials, and it was done in a way where you were publicly humiliated. Many a parent, especially the mothers, inadvertently shame their sons or the children. This usually happens when a mother criticizes the son's behavior rather than talking about it. You see, for a 16-year-old, caught drinking or caught outside or smoking might be a very embarrassing situation. But imagine if a police or a neighbor calls the mother, and instead of talking to the son in a very decent manner, the mother became hysterical. The mother started focusing on her own hurt and started blaming the son for all the fault. It is at that level shame creeps in. The words, the adjectives associated with shame are rather not very positive. We use words like "you must have disappeared," "I wish I can shrink you." There are withdrawal syndromes. You want to hide, escape, look down, slum, cut offs, go numb, snag, shag, withdraw. There are things that we don't like, and that is what shame brings in. And imagine you put the word sex to shame. Now this is the most volatile combination. It's almost like a chemistry experiment have gone bizarre and wrong. You see, again, many parents feel uncomfortable discussing children's sexuality and sex within the family. They react with a lot of disgust and criticize the child behavior. Studies, in fact, have shown that boys first see their first pornography around the age of 11. With the kind of social media in today's time, I would not be surprised somebody says 8, 9, but average is 11. 20 years ago, the first age of exposure to pornography was 14, and now it's only decreasing. So what are we going to do? How are we going to risk it, and how are we going to discuss this particular episode? So let me give you a reminder from our Desperate Housewives, one of our favorite perfectionist mother, Brie Van de Kamp. Brie is that mother who is always immaculately dressed. She is the first one to arrive. She will have the perfectly big cake for any party. Her dressing sense, her color combination, her roses, her garden, everything about Brie, her recipes are delicious, and that's what a mother she wants to be. She wants to be the ideal mother whose children cannot ever make a mistake. And what an amazing incident when her son Andrew declares his sexual orientation, which is not straight. And the hysteria Brie goes through, while it's a very funny intake, but as parents, how would we react? If your son or daughter would have come and said they had premarital sex, or your son would say, "I'm addicted to pornography," or somebody in today's time, the gays and lesbianism, they want to join the LGBT community, how would a parent react? An amazing intake, a case study is Brie's. But we take back a more reflective approach, a more contemplative approach, and as parents, how do we deal with such issues around us? If not with us children and our children, at least let's not have the elephant in the room and continue to ignore it. So this is what good parenting is about. Parenthood, in a reflection time, it's all about guiding the next generation and forgiving the last. I love the part of forgiveness, because if you're unable to forgive, if you're unable to let go, you will never be able to move ahead, either with you, your family, or your neighborhood, everyone pushing you around. You must let go. So what's a case study in today's episode? This is a case study on we discussed porn on computer. Now imagine the mother, Velma, she said, "I suddenly entered my son's study, his bedroom, and Both of mother and the son were shocked because he was looking up for some musician on the website and out popped a pornographic image. While that shocked and he made a loud sound, a kind of sound between a mixture of a groan and a scream. And the worst part was the mother was right there as if out of nowhere. She said, "What's the problem?" The embarrassment on the son was not because of the picture, but because of the fact that he knew that his mother also saw him. He was upset, and so should he be, but so was she upset. And now this assaultment by the image caught both of them unaware. Now what would a mother do at this time? You see, most of the time would like to shrink and discuss something or blame the son. Even, for example, take a case study on a separate issue where you found your son actually watching a pornographic movie. What do? How do you talk to him? And believe me, one of the worst conversation is what we discussed in our last episode. You insult him, you shame him, or you feel sorry for him. All you do is you come and acknowledge it. It must have been hard. Today it just comes out like that. The son would say, "Are you shocked?" or "I didn't do it." And as a mother, you say, add to it that's a lot of bad stuff on the internet. Unfortunately, you will probably come across a picture like that again. You see, as a mother or a father, and ideally a father handles a situation like that with sons and mothers with daughters, because gender sensitivity also becomes very important. But then what you talk in your conversation language becomes very important. So as a parent, what do you say? You might want to add, when you see a part of it, you want to stare at it, which is very normal. But that will make you feel embarrassed, and I strongly encourage you to shut it down as quickly as they pop up, because they will take you to the dark part. You see, as a parent, we need to understand and tell our son and our daughters that just seeing pornography will not make them a bad person, because the world around them is harsh. But you must make them not feel guilty about watching something that was not their mistake. Today we are unable to let go, remember? So I'll give you a very humorous incident of how boys and girls are wired to it. But this is something very interesting, where a mother says that I see my son was always with me when we grew up. We almost grew up together. So he was now 5-year-old, and I was everywhere with him. The first day of the class, his first garden, the birthday parties, the zoos, the shopping, the relatives. And here was a time when I and my son were flying for the first time alone, and we were going to my mother's place. And as we were embarking off, the flight was nearing the destination, I urged my son to use the restroom. And the son said, "I don't need to use the toilet." And how our children are. She insisted, and the son said no. Until about to descend, about to land, when all the airlines say shut down the restrooms, you can't use, the son is insisting he has to go to the toilet. Now the mother and son are waiting for the very process of reaching out. And as soon as they go now, the son runs to the bathroom in the airport. But the problem is, he has now a 5-year-old boy, he looks big enough, has to use the men's toilet. And she has never ever let him go alone, for that matter, anywhere, to a men's restroom to pee. One of the worst things that the mother said. And the mother said, "Now I realize how much of his life I was controlling, because for the first time he had to go to the men's one, and I stood near the entrance as he was going in, and I kept shouting, 'How's it going? Are you okay? 10 seconds up. Are you okay? You need any help?' And imagine all the other frustrated men around, where a woman is hanging around the men's loo. And the boy perhaps would have the most difficult pee time ever. And then as soon as he comes up, the mother asks, 'Have you washed your hands? Is it okay? Was it fine? Did you flush?' And imagine the embarrassing look on a child's thing. You see, we are creating a situation where we are making our children vulnerable. So who is more vulnerable? Boys, sons, or girls, our daughters? And believe me, with regards to pornography and what we're talking about, sex in the air, boys are more hardwired to be visual thing. And if you look at the ads today, the condom ads, the curtain ads, the laptop ad, the BMWs, and anything, you see a woman in a skimpy dress and telling you that the product is very good. And as visual as men are, boys look at these images and they have difficulty looking away. That's why pornography so powerfully attracts and affects the men and not the women. The pull you see, it could be a woman in an ad, in a song, in a movie, on the internet, and you're just watching a harmless movie and suddenly out of nowhere pops a kissing scene and you're uncomfortable watching with your children. What do? Most of us sit up and we start shutting down. The best way would be to have an honest conversation about their feelings towards sex and media. And believe me, that is what we will discuss today, or rather that is what we will suggest as we close our session on shame and sex. Sex education, my friends, believe me, begins very, very early. It begins as young as 3 years and 5-year-old, when you start talking to them how are boys and girls different. Are the clothes they wear different? And you tell them occasionally they are different, but very often they are same. The sneakers are the same, the track pants are the same. You see the cloth uniforms that you do. The hair. Well, my children grew up thinking girls have long hair, Rapunzel is a girl, and boys have short hair, until they meet someone with a long hair or a girl with a bob cut. What do then? No, that's not a differentiation factor. The best way is discuss that toilet manners are different. You slowly put it across. What's the difference between the private parts? Yes, but the way you do it is you start gently introducing to them, because if they get to know from the media and the world around, believe me, that will be a chaotic place in their minds. Their brains will mess up. Start with animals. Talk about the pregnancy in animal. Talk about the genders in animal. How do you differentiate, let's say, a hen from a rooster? And that's where these things will become very, very important. So 2 books I strongly recommend, if not for a personal self, at least for a school shelf or a collection of your parenting circle in your club or local library. You insist on it. Wonderful book. It's not the stock. And number 2 book is called What's the Big Secret? You can look at the details about the authors and all, but the book is very, very sensitive how it introduces the concept of how babies are formed, and a stock doesn't bring the baby, what is early sex, how a boy is different from girls. These are good conversational starters. These are very simple, ordinary, beautifully illustrated book, very less pages and less words, but what happens is it helps you talk about the birds and the bees. As they grow older, after adolescence, the teenagers, the puberty sets in, it becomes more difficult if you haven't done the right conversation. So you start dealing with early crushes. You must talk about it, because if somebody gives a letter or kisses your daughter, the problem will compound if they are not prepared for it. And one of the best things I can tell you, one of the best, literally the best thing, is fathers must hug their children, the daughters more. Bare-breasted, let your daughters touch you. Let them fool around with your hairs, and what happens is they start knowing you as a man, the first man in their life. You be the one who kissed them first. You be the one who touched them, hugged them, took them on a date first, because that's the bonding that develops. For teenagers, you will have to discuss things like puberty, menses, what's the right time to wear a bra, and these are strange issues to talk about. At least with the comfort of a laptop and a mobile, you are able to convey the message to the world, but your children need to discuss this. The growth of hairs in private places, this should not be a shock to them, and it should not be a sense of curiosity with their friends, but you casually convey a message to it. If you can't, a common group of aunt or a friend or an uncle or a coach who does it in a very generic way, but the message is conveyed. Talk about wet dreams. They will happen one day, and what do you do when? Don't let them embarrass them. Don't let these things make them feel humiliated and go into depression and stress and ultimately lead to something more shameful. Talk about what virginity is. Who is virgin? What is the chastity ring that the Brazilian footballer Kaká wears, where they say that we will not engage in premarital sex? Very, very interesting concept, very beautifully dealt with, and these are my 2 resources I can give you. When I say 2, there is this beautiful book called The Girl's Guide to Sex Education by Michelle Hope. Very nicely done. She's have taken up good questions about relationships, growing up in puberty, and then there is this Linda Marada's book, which are both for boys and girls. What's happening to my body for boys, and there's another one, the pink one. I wonder, there's a stereotype out there, blue and pink, but we'll accept the way it is. But these are good starting points and good resources for you take and talk about the much taboo subject of sex education. As you discuss and deal with it, remember the taboo things. to be considerate to the parental rights. So if you introduce a concept like this in your classrooms, in your neighborhood, please ensure that the parents are aware what you're talking to them. You don't want to get into further trouble. Number two, issues of morality which are different for different people. So it's okay for somebody to accept LGBT as a rightful thing. For some it is not. You must talk about things like premarital sex or use of condoms, what is right and what is not. These are morality issues. You look at your neighborhood. And finally, the issue of religion and faith, what is important and sensitive, you must also look at those considerations. I hope this gives you an overview idea of what good sex education is. Hopefully the word will not be shameful anymore. Until then, please give your feedback and comments. Until then, have a great parenting. I'd love to hear your feedback and comment more often. Thank you so much and have a great day.